Since June the 10th, 1940, the German Luftwaffe had been battering British shipping in the English Channel. The Luftwaffe's commander, Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, was determined to lure the British Air Force into combat. But Britain's Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding refused to take the bait. He used his fighters sparingly, knowing that the real battle was still to come. As this first phase of the Battle of Britain began, the Luftwaffe had a massive superiority in numbers. It had 1,100 single-engine fighters available to the Royal Air Force's 700. Almost all the German fighters were the excellent Messerschmitt Bf 109E, with a top speed of around 350 miles an hour. About two-thirds of the British fighters were Hawker Hurricanes, slower than the 109s but more agile. The remainder were Supermarine Spitfires, with a top speed similar to the 109s. For their assault, the Germans had over 1,300 medium bombers, Dornier Do-17s, Heinkel HE-111s and Junkers Ju-88s, each carrying about 4,000 pounds of bombs. Göring selected August the 13th as Adlertag, Eagle Day, for the start of his main assault. His aim was to destroy RAF fighters in the air and the RAF's airfields and Britain's aircraft factories. Softening up attacks were made the day before. These concentrated on the airfields and the radar towers along the south coast. One station on the Isle of Wight was put out of action, and several were damaged, but these were working again within hours. Göring did not believe that radar had a significant role to play in the battle, and so these attacks were not repeated. It was a big mistake. Adlertag dawned cloudy, so the main assault was postponed until the afternoon. When it came, radar gave ample warning.
Stormouth calling. Flames heard 3 miles southwest.
Nonetheless, most of the RAF airfields in the south were hammered. But by the end of the day, none had been put out of action. The Luftwaffe lost 46 aircraft. Britain, just 13. The Luftwaffe mounted its largest attack of the whole battle on August the 15th. Waves of heavily escorted German bombers forced their way through to the RAF airfields. The RAF was so overstretched that some pilots flew 7 sorties that day. By the time the raids died away, some 90 German aircraft had been shot down for the loss of 42 British fighters. The battle continued with equal ferocity over the next few days. Both sides became increasingly exhausted. Dowding tried to rotate his pilots to rest them, but he simply did not have enough of it. Many were being sent into battle with just 10 hours flying experience. The Luftwaffe was suffering too. Its pilots were shocked and increasingly demoralized by the resilience of the British. The RAF fighters always seemed to be waiting for them. As the fighting wore on for 12 solid days, the British losses began to creep up to match those of the Germans. The Royal Air Force was close to breaking. To turn the screw, Goering began using his bombers to attack at night as well. But this decision had an unexpected outcome. On the night of August the 24th, a flight of Heinkel bombers lost its way and bombed the city of London. It was the first attack on a non-military target. The next night, 81 British bombers responded by raiding Berlin. Hitler was infuriated and demanded massive retaliation. This came on the evening of September the 7th. German bombers attacked the London docks and surrounding areas. More than 450 people died and thousands of homes were destroyed. But in fact, this was Goering's second crucial mistake. By switching from the RAF's airfields just at the moment when it seemed about to break, he gave it the respite it needed. Had Goering continued to attack the airfields, the RAF could not have continued to defend the skies. Instead, on September the 15th, British radars picked up another massive assault on London. The first wave of 100 bombers and 400 fighters was intercepted. Fighting raged all the way from the coast. In the afternoon, another fleet of 150 bombers renewed the attack. Winston Churchill was at Fighter Command headquarters that day. After he heard controllers calling in reinforcements from neighboring groups, he asked, "What other reserves have we got?" The reply was, "There are none." But it was obvious that the Luftwaffe had failed to gain control of the air. And on September the 17th, Hitler postponed Operation Sea Lion. The Battle of Britain did not really end, it died away. Hitler now tried a new tactic. By October the 5th, the daylight raids stopped, and the Germans concentrated on bombing Britain's cities by night. This was the so-called Blitz. London was attacked every night but one, up to November the 12th. On November the 10th, the centre of the city of Coventry was obliterated. The Blitz continued into 1941, with the last major raid being made on London on the night of May the 10th. More than 50,000 civilians were killed in the Blitz, but there was never any question of Britain cracking. Victory in the Battle of Britain was a moment of huge national relief. Pilots had come from all over the empire to join the RAF, and from countries occupied by the Nazis like Poland and Czechoslovakia. Churchill summed up the nation's gratitude.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
But for Hitler, this was no more than an irritating setback. Britain, he was convinced, could never be a serious threat. So he now turned to Eastern Europe. For Britain, there was now a chance to rebuild with a view one day to taking the fight to the enemy. But to do that, Churchill would need help.